Welcome back. A couple of more games have ended in the 2022 Chess.com Daily Chess Championship. If you will remember, I was out of my depth in this tournament. In round two, especially, everyone else in my group, save one, was ranked higher than me, most of them significantly. This is one example of another game that just ended, and I was trying to figure out where I went wrong. Now here, if you'll see the evaluation here, we're dead even. This is after 18 moves. Now, when this bishop moved here taking my rook, we had just traded rooks on this spot. What I was seeing was another piece pointed at this pawn. All I have protecting that is this pawn. And so it just seemed natural to me to try to add another defender to it. It looks like White's trying to break open the center here. They have heavy pieces lined up. And so it seemed natural to me to bring this bishop back here to add another defender to the d5 square. That seemed important to me. I did notice that another option was to bring my rook over to the open file, but I didn't know which one was more important. I don't have a set of rules listing the priorities of all these things. Defend your pieces, rooks on open files, control the center. I don't know which ones in which situations carry the priority. Here you can see the evaluation is definitely saying rook to f8 is my best move right here. Another one that would accomplish the same thing, or just the same evaluation, is to put this pawn right here, c5, which would attack this pawn. But that pawn's defended twice, so I don't know. I'm not going to be able to break through the center there. In fact, if I did that, and White didn't take, and I did, nothing else is defending that spot on my side, and they can just put their queen here, and it's pointing right at my king. So I never even would have considered that. Knight to f6, it says, is another one. Now that one I remember considering, because it puts another defender on this pawn. But I don't know why I discounted that one. But what I did was I moved the bishop there to guard this pawn. And as you can see, then White gets a huge advantage. 3.5 points. So I can't understand why one is so much worse than the other one. But it's only 3.5 points if White takes now. If White right now captures this pawn. If they don't, then it's not. And White didn't make one of those top three moves. They put the queen here, which takes away all of that advantage. So basically my move was counted as a blunder, but so was theirs. And I'm not sure exactly why White did that. And it's saying, now the engine is saying, again, I should move c5 or knight to f6. Now it's not even saying rook to f8. But I thought, what if they do take this pawn? What if White does take this pawn and I take back? It wouldn't go there because I already had the other defender. I miscounted here because I thought I needed to defend this bishop. And that's where I did this. I can see why that's a mistake now. I miscounted on the defenders. So that's a mistake. Gave away advantage again. But again, only if White captures here. And White didn't. White didn't make one of the top three moves. They pushed the e-pawn, taking away all of their advantage. This is a person who's rated 1600. And so I think, they're making among the best moves. Obviously, I can't see the evaluation during the game. Now it's saying I can take either one of these pawns and I'll be fine, but especially if I take the c pawn. But all this time we've been trained not to give up a center pawn for a flank pawn. Also, he's got a rook right there that he's going to break open if I take that pawn, and a queen on that. So I wouldn't have considered that, right? And it says I can be okay if I take this one, but then he's going to take back, and he's got a bishop pointed right at my king. And it's saying I really wouldn't even be that bad if I went ahead and stuck my queen over here. That I don't understand at all. I did see that nothing's protecting the rook. I thought, not only can I put my queen here in front of the king, which might help line up some future attack once I brought the rook over, once I brought the knight over, but it hits the rook. So that's what I did. Big mistake. Yeah, maybe even a blunder there. Okay. And this time white did make the best move, which was to, directly attack the piece I just moved there. Engine says I can move it back here. I can move it back here. I can even take it all the way back to the back rank. I picked what turns out to be the best move, keeping it lined up with the king, and incidentally adding another attacker to that square. I don't think I even considered that probably. And here white made one of the best, not their absolute best move, which again would have been this, but they made the next best one, which is here. And I didn't make one of the top 3 best moves here. I should have just taken back. But I didn't. I did that. Thinking, if this pawn did take me, I can come forward. But it says here, all white has to do is this, right? Boom, lines up those two. So yeah, I was dead lost here. But the good news is, right here, my opponent did not return within 24 hours to make their next move, so I won this game, right there. Yeah, and let me show you the other game against this same opponent. This is my other game against that same opponent. Again, we're all playing simultaneous games with everyone else in the group, up to 22 games at a time. 2 games against each person, one with the black pieces, one with the white pieces. This is my game with the white pieces against that same opponent that I just showed in the previous game. Here, I have an advantage 21 moves in against a person who's rated around 1600. And here, you can see I keep that advantage if I long castle. That's what it says. That I guess because that adds an extra defender to this pawn. They've just lined up a battery here against this pawn. If I castle, not only is my queen defending the pawn, but my king would be defending the pawn too. And I would have moved my rook to this open file. And it would be connected with the other rook. I didn't see all of that. It also says I could maintain an even game if I castled the other way, which would lose that pawn, but my rooks would be connected and my king would be way over here. But what I did instead was try to add the defender to this pawn this way, through the queen. Thinking, if they did come down, I would not only would they would get a pawn and a queen, but I would get a queen and a rook, so they wouldn't do that. That was my thinking. Okay, so you see the evaluation drop. Okay, well, part of the problem is when this bishop moved, now this pawn's not defended anymore. Well, that's not one of their top 3 moves, but they can take a free pawn over here now if they want to. But it says they can just go ahead and put their knight here on f4, and that would be really great for them. This is what I mean when I put, say, the title up here, Out of My Depth. I have no idea why that's the best move and why what I did was such a blunder. Like, I did know that this bishop is guarding these 2 pawns, and so moving it up the diagonal either way quits guarding the other pawn. And I guess I was willing to give up that pawn in order to help protect this one and keep this infiltration from happening. That's why castling long was better, because the bishop maintains control of both of those pawns while adding a defender to this one. I get that part, but I don't get why this was as bad as it was. And it's not that bad because it gives up this pawn. It's bad because it allows knight to f4. Now, obviously the knight couldn't have gone to f4 before because the bishop was here. But now it can, but I don't understand why that's so big. Yes, I mean, it points at this bishop from there. But then, can't I just move that bishop? Right? In fact, it says I wouldn't. It says if the knight went here, I would just move the the rook over. Also, it says the queen can go here, and that would be really bad. I guess because it pins this, but the queen's protected twice, so I have no idea why why that was so bad. My opponent did the second one of those, put the queen there. And it says my best move here is to move this bishop. Oh no, it's changed its mind. The computer's changing its mind. It's saying rook g1 is my best move. That's not even a semi-open file. Not only is it, I mean, it would protect the pawn, but I don't understand. And maybe I will someday, but right now I'm just not going to understand why moving rook to g1 is the best move. It says my second best move is bishop captures h5. Oh, the knight? Okay. That would be an even trade. We're even on material at this point. But that would undouble their pawns. Would that be great? I don't know. h4. Okay, that would protect that pawn. But instead, I thought I probably have to trade queens here. So I did that. And you can see the evaluation gets a little bit worse. Of course, they take back. And here, it turns out I actually did end up making the best move, because right now the bishop's hanging. So I put it back where it was, and it guards both those pawns. That was my best move in this situation. Oh no, I went the wrong way? What? Sorry, I misread the thing. Oh, my best move was to just leave that pawn hanging. Oh, because this pawn is going to be hanging too if I put the bishop back. Okay, but I did make the best move. Threaten the rook and keep protecting this pawn. But now I'm not protecting that pawn anymore, or that one. I've left these two out, you know. And so I'm not really lost in this one, but you can see it's getting worse, and I'm not understanding the position at all. But once again, right here, my opponent didn't return in the required 24 hours to make the next move, and so I won this game too. I got points for that, not only tournament points, but rating points on my daily rating, which isn't really fair. I don't feel like, I mean, that's the rules, so it's obviously fair. I don't mean fair that way. I mean, it didn't feel fair in that I was losing both of these games due to mistakes because I didn't understand the position. I don't understand why my move was bad and the other one was good. Especially, some of them were a lot worse than the others. I don't understand. I'm out of my depth. Fortunately, yes, I did win these two games on time, but that's not going to continue to happen through the rest of the tournament. But thank you for sticking with me, and maybe I'll win a few others of these on time. But I have lost a few too, so this will be the last round for sure. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.